Good day to everyone. I am Andre Publico, and I was asked by my friend Marco Mondihar to share with you today's lesson. I'm not a pastor, although there was a time when I served in our church ministry. At present, I'm a professor of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where I have been teaching since 1985. I would like to express my appreciation to the leadership of the Philippine National Police for the weekly online fellowship program with the objective of strengthening the spiritual foundation of the organization. I understand the ethical and the spiritual challenges you face on a daily basis. I have friends in high school and in our church who served the PNP until their retirement. Having a strong spiritual foundation and deep conviction will help you decide the right course of action and resist temptations. This month's lessons are focused on family. Previous speakers talked about the husband wife relationship. Today, I'm going to speak on the parent children relationship or parenting. The title of my lesson is Parental Responsibilities. I'm not sure if all of you are married or parents. If you're not and you're planning to, this lesson will prepare you for the future. If marriage and parenthood is not part of your future plans, you may still find it useful as it teaches you how to be a better tito or tita to other people's kids. I am married. In fact, I have been married twice. My first wife had cancer and passed away in 2016. Last year, I remarried. I have two children from my first marriage. My first child is now 25 years old, and my second, 22 years old. They have both graduated from college. One works part time and is pursuing her master's degree in clinical psychology, and the other works full time as a graphic artist for an international school. When I was still single, I thought raising up children was easy. I grew up in the province, in Alcala, Pangasinan. My parents were both public school teachers. I have one sister and three brothers. When I was young, we had a helper and my grandmother lived with us. They assisted my parents in the household work and made life easier for my parents and for us, their children. During times when we did not have a helper, household chores were assigned to us. But since the chores were divided among the five of us, the individual work was not that heavy. When I got married and had children of my own, I experienced the real challenges and difficulties of being a parent. Parenting is not easy. Someone said, parenting is not for wimps. And that is true. Yes, it takes courage to be a parent. But I'm very grateful for my church for the messages and workshops that prepared me not only for my role as a husband, but also as a father. One of the verses that continually inspires me as a parent is Psalm 127, verse 3. And I'm reading it from different versions of the Bible. In the Good News Bible, it says, children are a gift from the Lord. They are a real blessing. In the NIV version, it says, children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him. Sa Tagalog po, ang mga bata ay isang mana mula sa Panginoon. Sila ay isang gantimpala mula sa Kanya. Because of the difficulties and challenges in raising up children, parents sometimes see them in a negative light. Maingay, magulo, makukulit. Yes, often this is True, but kids are simply acting their age, and many parents forget they were once kids and probably mas masahol pa sila. But Psalm 127 verse 3 tells us who our children really are. That they are a gift, a heritage from the Lord, a real blessing, a reward. Do you see your children as a gift, a heritage, a blessing, and a reward? Seeing children the way God sees them creates in you a more grateful heart, a more positive attitude, a stronger desire to give them your best, and a greater sense of responsibility. For with great blessing comes great responsibility. So, what does God expect of us, parents, to whom He has given a real blessing? What are our responsibilities as parents who have received a precious inheritance from the Lord? Today, I would like to talk about three major parental responsibilities. Responsibility number one, provide for our children's needs. And for this, I would like to read 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14b. Ito po yung pangalawang sentence sa verse 14 ng 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And it says, after all, children should not have to provide for their parents, but parents should provide for their children. Parents should provide for their children. God has entrusted to us a great gift. One of our responsibilities is to provide for their needs so that they will eventually mature and grow in wisdom and stature in the society. Raising up children is not easy. And I say this again and again. It is also not inexpensive. From the moment a child is conceived, money begins to flow out of the savings of the parents. Parents spend on regular doctor's consultations, vitamins, supplements and medications if needed, and ultrasound to know the gender of the fetus or other necessary tests. And when the baby is delivered, parents spend on hospitalization and doctor's fee. And after the birth of the child, parents spend for the baby's needs, such as milk, milk bottles, diapers, clothes, sterilizers, regular checkups with the pediatricians, crib, and many more. And then, the child starts going to school. Nowadays, children start their schooling at the latest age of 6. Other children start schooling at age 2. And until they graduate from college or after they get a job, parents provide for all their expenses: clothes, daily allowance, food, school fees, and other expenses. But physical and material needs are not the only needs of children. They also need emotional support, security, social, and spiritual guidance. Providing for the family in our society takes money. Earning money almost always takes parents away from their children. A regular employee spends at least 8 hours of work every day. And for you working with the Philippine National Police, you find yourselves in a more challenging situation. Now, what do I mean by that? One of my closest friends in high school and his wife worked with the Philippine National Police until retirement. One of the challenges they faced was that of being separately assigned to different places. When his wife was assigned in Quezon City, my friend was in Region 1, and their children were living at home in another place. A few years later, his wife was assigned in Mindanao and he in Region 2. While they were both in the Philippines, most of the time they were not only separated from each other, but also from their children. I remember a time when my father had to study for his master's degree in education at UP Diliman in the late 1960s. At the time, I was around 8 years old. That was before the declaration of martial law, and there was so much unrest going on all over the Philippines. The absence of my father from our home created a sense of insecurity, even instability in us. And he was away only for 1 year. We have to understand that when parents are away from their children for a prolonged period, they are unable to fully provide the emotional support, security, and guidance to their children. In practical terms, what can parents do to fulfill the responsibility of providing for the needs of their children? One is do your best at work so that you can continually provide financial support for your family. If you lose your job, you can no longer provide for the financial needs of your family. Second, as much as possible, be physically present and available to meet their non-material needs. Our presence oftentimes is all they need to be emotionally stable and physically secure. Third, find out how your children are doing. Be emotionally connected with them. Ask them, how are they feeling? What things bother them? Provide guidance as they face difficult situations and relationship issues. Fourth, if because of demands of your line of work you cannot be physically present most of the time, make the most of the time you have with them. Stay connected using social media. Don't forget special days such as birthdays, graduations, and the like. If you can get a leave of absence to be with your family during special occasions, do so. When you are off duty, spend all your available time with your spouse and children. Responsibility number 2, love our children. We're not only expected to provide for the needs of our children, but also to love them unconditionally and with all our hearts. In Titus chapter 2, verses 3 to 4, we read, older women must teach what is good in order to train younger women to love their husbands and children. Everyone wants to be loved, and we first experience love from our parents. Now, mothers seem to have the natural inclination for loving children, but the Bible, in the verse that we just read, tells us that even young mothers have to be trained on loving their own children. Now, why is this so? According to the best-selling author Gary Chapman, there are 5 different love languages. I don't know if you've read the book, but let me give you what these love languages are. 1, words of affirmation. 2, quality time. 3, physical touch. 4, receiving gifts. 5, acts of service. What is your love language? Mine is physical touch. I love being hugged. I feel so loved. My first wife made weird faces whenever I told her I love you. She moved away when I touched her arms, but she had a big smile on her face whenever I buy chocolate bars, or do something she never expected me to do for her. Her love language are obviously receiving gifts and acts of service. My second wife is not thrilled by flowers or chocolates, but she is very happy when we hold hands or have lunch together. What are her love languages? Quality time and physical touch. Both my children feel so much love whenever I spend time with them doing anything. Watching a movie with our dogs, having breakfast together, watching them play video games. Their common love language is time. What is your love language? Do you know your child's love language? Why is this important? Because the real question is not, do you love your children, but do your children feel loved by you? Do your children feel loved by you? Some parents believe that their tireless work for many years in order to provide all the material needs of their family is an expression of their ultimate love. They are shocked to find out years later that what their children really wanted all along is to be with them, not the expensive gifts they lavish on them. The best gifts parents can give to their children is to love one another well. When this is clearly seen and strongly felt, an atmosphere of security is created in the home, and the parents become role models for all life's relationships. We should not only be aware of what makes our children feel loved, but also what makes them feel not loved. And what are these things? Well, if they're not listened to, when there's favoritism in the family, when their needs aren't being met, and when parents break their promise. These are some of the things that makes our children feel unloved. And if any of this is happening in your family, you are failing in your responsibility of loving your children. According to Robertson McQuilkin, love for children must be spoken and demonstrated. If it's acted but not spoken, a child may miss the point and languish in the fear that love is not really there. But far worse is to talk it without consistently doing it. How consistent are these words with those in 1 John chapter 3 verse 18, which says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions and in truth." The third and last responsibility that I would like to talk about today is this: prepare our children for autonomy, which means that this requires disciplining, modeling, training, and coaching. Our children will not remain with us for the rest of their lives. Ulitin ko yun, hindi mananatili ang ating mga anak sa atin habang buhay. At some point, they will leave home and live on their own. And when they do, they must be able to not just survive, but also to thrive. They must be able to live on their own. And that is what I mean by autonomy. Thus, from the time they are born until they leave home, we have to prepare them for this eventuality. How? Well, according to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, and again, I'll show this in two different Bible versions. Sa Good News Bible, sabi doon, "Parents, do not treat your children in such a way as to make them angry. Instead, raise them with Christian discipline and instruction." And in the NIV, it says, "Fathers, Do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. It is the primary responsibility of parents to bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. This is a job we cannot and should not subcontract to a yaya or even to close relatives. Training takes many forms, as I mentioned previously, and it is the topic of next week's lesson. But today, I would like to focus on one aspect of training: modeling. Let me ask you a question. What is the easiest way to learn something new? I've been teaching engineering students since 1985. What I realize is this: no matter how I explain a certain theory, principle, or concept, most students do not fully understand it until I show them how it is applied to a specific problem. This is modeling, teaching others by doing something they are expected to be able to do themselves. I learned many things from simply watching and being with my father. One thing is cooking. My father was a great cook, and I loved to eat delicious food. When he was cooking and I was around, he asked me to taste the food and to tell him what was missing. Was it too spicy? Does it need more salt? Is it sour enough? Another thing that I learned from my father was love for spouse. One of my brothers once said that our father spoiled our mother, but deep inside, I admired how he loved and took care of her. He was very malambing to her, and he was never unfaithful to her. Another thing I learned from my dad was the habit of reading the news. Until my father's eyes became weak around the age of 89, he read the newspaper daily. Every morning, one of the things that I do is read or watch news online. I also learned from my dad not to smoke or drink too much alcohol. At home, he used to drink a bottle of beer occasionally, but I've never seen him drunk. Neither had I seen him smoke. Children are observational and experiential learners. Let me repeat: children are observational and experiential learners. They learn almost anything through their interaction with other people. They learn by imitation, and they are great imitators. The problem is, at a young age, they are not very discriminating. They imitate what they see in others, whether good or bad. And here is the problem. As an infomercial said in the 1980s, ang maling gawa ay nagiging tama sa mata ng mga bata kapag ginagawa ng mas nakakatanda. We parents provide the strongest human influence on our children. That is why, if we want our children to be righteous and God-fearing, we must model godly virtues such as love, integrity, honesty, sexual morality, trust, kindness, faith, responsibility, compassion, patience, perseverance, good character, justice, courage, humility, and the like. Again, simply talking about these virtues won't work. I'm not saying that we should not talk to our children about them or not to teach them, but we should not neglect the other essential part of modeling. And what is that? Walk the talk. Walk the talk. No parents in their right mind would teach their children wrong values. But if they say the right things to their children and do the opposite, guess what the children would do? They will imitate what the action, they will imitate the action and ignore the words. For most children learn with their eyes, not with their ears. How are you preparing your children for the life that they will live in the future? The best time to start is now. And how would you know if you are doing the right things? Well, according to Andy Smithson, the sign of great parenting is not the children's behavior. The sign of true great parenting is the parent's behavior. Do what is right in the eyes of God, and your children will follow. In closing, I would like to leave you with these words from Lisa Wingate. She was a journalist, an inspirational speaker, and a best-selling author. She said, "Your children are the greatest gift God will give to you, and their souls the heaviest responsibility He will place in your hands. Take time with them. Teach them to have faith in God. Be a person on whom they can have faith. When you are old, nothing else you've done will have mattered as much." Let us be responsible parents. Let us provide for the needs of our children. Let us love them unconditionally with all our hearts. And let us prepare them for autonomy in the future. Thank you for watching. I hope our lesson today makes a big difference in your relationship with your children.